Hey, it's Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and it's Tuesday. It's August 9th. This will be our chart lesson for the day, and we actually closed down 2 days in a row now. Uh, we only closed down slightly yesterday. We had a little more. We traded much lower, but as usual, the market tried to take it back late in the afternoon, and we took some of it back. Not quite what we've been doing. I would definitely call this a mostly bearish day today, although we did close well off the lows. So. Um, And we have relieved some of the, we're still overbought, but we've relieved some of the severely overbought pressure. You can see we're back. We're kind of in between the top two lines on the envelope bands there. So uh, we're way overdue for a correction. So, we may make one more push up. We'll see. We don't quite have that measured move in place yet. You can see we didn't quite reach it, and we may not reach it. And generally, if we don't reach it and we start selling off, that could mean, that's close enough to call it probably a measured move. But a lot of times when you come up extremely short, that means you're going to have a much bigger move to the downside. And I still think we're going to retest these lows. I really do. I think we're headed to test 3650 again. There's no evidence. It looks like, hey, we could be topping here. But there's not enough evidence to even say here, hey, we're topping. We could still go higher yet. So, don't try to pick tops or anything like that. We're just looking at the daily chart trying to get a clue of where we're headed next. And I still think that we got a lot of room to the downside here. So we'll see what happens. We still need to retest the lows of this blue channel, in my opinion. So we got that going as well. So anyway, let's flip over to the intraday chart, the 2,000 tick chart, and we'll go through the trades. Not a lot of them today. Shouldn't take very long, but let me flip over there. Okay, here's a look at the 2,000 tick chart. You can see the volume and the volatility. There's still some volatility here. This is not really, this is a downward trend here for most of the day. However, notice how we're above, below, above, below, above, below, above, below, above, below. When you're consistently swinging back and forth above and below the EMA and it's kind of sideways like that, even though there's a downward trend here, you could still trade this both ways if you get a decent setup. So just be aware of that. There's not many longs here, but you could trade them if there was a decent setup, if there's something you liked. There's no reason you couldn't trade this both ways. Just remember that. That's kind of the rule. When you're back and forth above and below the EMA, that's sideways action. So even though there's a downward bias here, so most of your trades are probably better off to be to the downside, you're still going to sometimes get some chances to buy. So keep that in mind. And there may be a buy or two in here. A couple of things in here you might argue, hey, this could be green maybe. But and you can see there's not a lot of trades here today. But the volatility and the volume have definitely tailed off. So, and my guess is people are just afraid to sell at this sale yet, but there's not a lot of buyers willing to come in and really buy up a lot of stuff at these prices. We've rallied quite a bit in what I would call a bear move. So you got to be careful. There will be big rallies and bear moves. We've seen it in this bear move back on the daily chart. I've shown it to you in the past on previous videos where you get a nice rally and then suddenly it's just rocketing down again. And I'm still not convinced we're not going to test the lows again. That's pretty much what the chart's telling us. So anyway, let's zoom in here, go through the trades. And you had to be patient this morning. You really did. It was almost 9 o'clock before we had a trade. This is just sideways stuff. 7 o'clock came as we're bottoming out here. And we're definitely in a downtrend. So you got to be careful buying here. And there's just no short setups. So we do have a break of this green and a new high here. It's just a first entry. There's a new low right here, and there you might say, hey, there's a leg up, a correction, and another leg. So maybe you count that as a hidden second entry, but it's still an inside bar, even though it's far away. If you were going to ever take an inside bar, this is the kind of place you might do it. You might argue there's a triple test across there, but this is technically your signal bar. So, and we're not back to the trend line yet. We just came off the lows, so we're probably headed back here. And we just keep chopping sideways. So I don't see, we're not getting back to the highs. That's showing that there's still some weakness. There's no reason to buy yet. And so we're just looking for a good reason to get short here. And finally we get over here and we get a break. You get a triple test up here, but it's not a very good signal bar. But finally you get a lower high right here, right at the midline. There's plenty of room back down to the low. And maybe we go and test the lows from over here, and there's and we might even make two legs down. That's not really we don't end up really getting two legs down. We do go down and test the lows, and then we rally for a bit. There was a good chance you already could get a trend line here. It was a little flat to be looking for that yet, but when we turn down right here, I would definitely test this, and you can clearly see that this, especially when you drag it down, and you can see it's the midline is coming into play perfectly there. So, but you may not have had this. You might have just been playing the green at this point. Most likely, that's probably what you would be looking at that point. But we do bounce here. Notice that you got your break of the flatter channel or the steeper channel. Move to a new low. You've got this channel here. You get a break, a new low, and now you're bouncing here. And I would draw that off those first couple of swings there. And this is a second entry, a little ways away from the EMA. You don't know that it's definitely, I mean, it looks like it's probably a good trend line, and if you drag it up, it fits, and the midline makes sense. But maybe you want another confirmation, so I just marked this one green. But it is a second entry, pull back first entry, pull back second entry. You do get a close outside and a new low. And it does seem to be fitting, the channel seems to be fitting nicely. So I don't see any reason why you couldn't try to ride that back to the EMA. It's a little more aggressive. It's a little more advanced. You'd be better off to wait on the higher low here, which is also I mean, you might look at that. You could almost call that one leg down. And so maybe a second entry right there on a bigger picture. But it's a higher low all the same. And it's a really nice signal bar. This one, I don't know if I would wait till here to go long because you're so close to the highs. If you're going to trade this one, you probably want to do it on a break. It actually breaks lower and turns up. So you probably want to do it on the break higher right there. I don't think I would wait till that bar closed because you're just too close to the high. It still would have worked, but you're taking a chance. And you might even say, hey, there's a failed second entry short, but it doesn't get back to the EMA. Again, you got to go long right into those highs. I don't think it's worth taking. Just sit tight and wait. And then a few minutes later, you get, and this is a little more advanced too on this one too. This is just a first entry basically, if you base it on the counts. But notice you got a leg down here, and then you got a little two-legged correction here that's mostly sideways, and then you have another leg down. So this is clearly two legs down, and on a bigger picture, that's probably a second entry. And regardless, it's a huge, really nice signal bar right off of the key entry point. And again, if you're a good chart reader, you probably see that there's two legs back here, and there's two legs in the middle, which usually are the center of the pattern. I didn't measure this to see how close it was to a measured move, but that's where you would look for a second leg down. And probably close to a measured move. I didn't mark. And you can see that's really close to almost a perfect measured move. And then boom, off it goes. And then you get your break, and it runs down. We should have come down and tested this low before we went back to the high. And so this rally was getting a little ahead of itself. And you see quickly it comes back down, and then it runs back up to the highs again. So but you couldn't argue with this green one either. You got to take the setups if you see them. And you don't really get a chance to go short here, and the bottom just falls out of it and runs straight down to the lows. I don't think you want to buy down here. Technically, you could argue that's a second entry, and you could argue that it's a repeat pattern of this, just on a bigger version and a different trend line. So if you saw that, maybe you take that. It's one you might argue to be green. There's a higher low here right into the EMA. You can't take that. And that pretty much sets this trend line right here. And of course you're running up. You get a close outside. It takes a couple of pushes, but you finally make a new high, and then it turns down. And that's a triple test. You came up once, twice, 3 times. Nice signal bar. I like going short right there. It comes back and gives you a lower high here, but that's right into the EMA. I would wait and see if you get a reversal pattern. And you do, but it's just not a very good one here. This is just too congested right here. And you can see it just ends up working side. We actually do drop down and come back. And I like, this is only a first entry short, but notice the new swing high right there. And you try to go higher once, twice. There's 2 legs down. It's a failed second entry long. Right off the key entry point right there. Nice signal bar. And that's a quick, easy trade. It actually comes back here. You almost could argue that this is a double top. I mean, it's just sideways, and so maybe you argue this is 1 leg, 2 legs, so you might even argue that's a failure. I think you're having to push it a little bit on that, but it's something you might consider. It's definitely off the key entry point, definitely a nice signal bar. So, sometimes, you have to really read the chart and say, hey, what are we going to be doing here? And the odds are we're going lower, so maybe you take a chance on that one. I'll mark it green, but I think you're better off to wait. And then down here you get a second entry short. And this is also a failed break out of congestion. I didn't mark the little congestion area. It looks like a leg up, a pullback, and another leg up, but it also looks congested there. And really all the way across. And so you could argue it's a failed breakout too, right off the key entry point, right off the EMA. Very nice signal bar, and it's a second entry. 2 legs back to the key entry point in the EMA. I like going short there. There's a lower high here. The problem is I don't think there's enough room to get out right there, and you can see the 3 bars stacked up. It's a little congested right there, and you can see you only got 4 ticks to that low where I got to have that bar. So I don't think I would take that trade. It would have worked, but I don't think you want to risk it. And you can see it breaks lower and fails and turns up and you get your first break. There is a second entry short here. Notice you work up and you go down and you go higher again. So you could say that this played out. It's just hard to argue that there's a close outside unless you say it all happened in the new high happened in the new bar, which that happens sometimes. So maybe that's another one you might argue to be green. But I would wait, and you can see that most of the traders obviously weren't convinced enough that there was a new high in place, because now you get a measured leg up to a new high, and then it turns down. So it's tempting to go long right there. It is a second entry long, but we're really looking for prices to go lower here. So I think and we might already have a high, so I think it's too risky to try to go long. It's really hard to know what prices or how prices are going to react, how they're going to win out. Are we going to go lower? Are we going to go higher? It could go either way there. That's the problem with that area right here. Is just hard to know exactly what prices are going to do. And then they do run up and make a new high, and then they sell off and they make the new low on the first break here. So price action still plays out, but it's a little odd how it gets there. And that's actually 2 measured legs right there. So it's all perfect price action, but it happens in a way that it's a little hard to know that it's going to end up being perfect price action. So you just kind of have to sit tight. And you can see how the EMA is getting a little flat here. And we're starting to swing above and below. This is where it starts getting kind of semi-sideways. And notice how each swing gets stronger in the other direction every time almost until we go into 2 o'clock. So it's just really hard to trade this. From really noon on, I saw one trade I like. And, of course, you're running up here and you try to go higher once, twice, and then 3 times. And you're a little bit of ways from the EMA, so you're probably going to snap back on that triple test. And this turns out to be a really good trade. You could, if you play this right, you can probably ride this all the way down to these lows. And again, we get a close outside, a move to a new low, and then the trend up really starts right here. And same thing, you run up, you get a close outside new high, and then a lower high. It's too congested there. Looks like you're going to get a failure here, and it's an inside bar, and then you don't have much room to the lows. And it looks like we're trying to go higher here. It looks like we're just in a more range-like here. So I don't think you want to go long there either. So this just kind of takes us into 230. And you might take that trade right there because there is a new low, and you get a first entry, second entry. It's off a key entry point. But when we didn't make it down here, there's a good chance we could get a break up here. So without there being a break of this green channel, I'm a little leery of going short yet. And you don't get really a failure until even here, this too congested. And so that would be where your failure is at, and it's on the wrong side too. So not a good place that you can really go short. And I don't think you want to go long there either after just coming off the highs. You might take that one. If I was going to take a chance and be risky, that's where I'm going to take it at the key entry point. It's been proven. It's been holding all day. But you can see it wasn't long before it gives. But you could have easily gotten some trades out for that before it rallied there. So anyway, that's how I saw it. Again, not a lot of trades. Pretty straightforward until after about lunchtime, and then we should have traded on down here, and we didn't, and we went higher instead. But that's giving you a clue that we're probably going to get a break, which we do. And we ran out of time before prices ever even attempted to make a new low. So we'll see if the topping action continues tomorrow, and maybe we turn down. We could push back up again tomorrow. We'll just have to see. We do have a close outside on that daily chart now, though, so we could finally be running out of steam to the upside. We'll have to see. But anyway, I'm going to wrap it up. We'll be back again to do it tomorrow. I'm done for today. This is Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see.